This is a Voyescape podcast. You can find all of our travel podcasts from around the world at voyescape.com.
You need to share with us your theory for the finale episode of Lotus Season 3. Okay, my theory is that Tala is going to tell Guy Fawkes to go after Rick for all the crazy behavior at her house, and he's going to have Luke in his head telling him to be more aggressive, and he'll try to shoot Rick, but then Chelsea will somehow sacrifice herself to save Rick, and she'll be a martyr, and she's the body.
My final prediction is that Lachlan's gonna die.
Why? I don't know why.
Well, Katie, welcome back to the White Lotus. It's your final day at the White Lotus.
Finally, get me out of here, man. Get me out of here.
Get me on that boat back to the mainland.
What is up with this place, by the way? Like, I gotta say, every few years there's a death at these resorts. I don't know why people keep coming back.
I think this has been like every year.
Every year there's somebody dies at this resort, and this year, my God, is it ever going to get any better here? 1 star out of 5.
Yep. So I need to say off the top, what everyone heard before we came in was my 2 friends that I watched the finale with, and they gave me their predictions before we started viewing, and it was pretty funny to watch it because we thought that they were both right, basically. Except Lachlan came back to life. So Sheer was really upset. Even though she had like no logic for why Lachlan was going to die, she was still very disappointed.
There's no reason why, sorry to just jump, there's no reason why Lachlan should have come back to life.
I agree. I was ready. Like, I had accepted that Lachlan died.
I had accepted his fate already. And like, from what you Googled about that fruit, I was not convinced. I was like, he's out. He's a goner. But alas, no. Well, not alas, but I guess, Anyway.
All right. So before we get into it, what is your 1-sentence review of the finale?
Oh my God, Erin.
I know, that's a really tough question.
I think it's just like, yeah, that happened.
Oh, interesting. Did you like it?
This is okay, Erin, this is the thing. I'm like starting to feel either self-conscious that I'm just like not smart enough to be recapping shows in general.
Why?
Or B, like I'm always been like an entertainment lover. It's really hard for me to not like something exactly unless it really like makes me cringe or feel uncomfortable. So like generally I just like most of the things that I watch, and that included this season, but I didn't feel like super crazy, like wild about it. And it didn't occur to me until Mark and I watched a movie over the weekend that really like sat with me afterwards. And I was like, okay, I'm not exactly a person who just watches things and they're like, that was good and moves on. I'm like, okay, no, I actually do like things.
Yeah.
So I think I was like, I don't know, like a strong medium on this.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I've seen a lot of people like share that sentiment.
Yeah.
I liked it. Like, I thought it was really entertaining.
Yeah,
like,
I was
definitely
entertained.
Like, and to me, you know what? Like, people overthink media a lot sometimes. Like, let's just enjoy things. Like, exactly. I enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm probably going to overthink it a lot in this discussion that we're about to have. But like, in terms of entertainment, it was very entertaining. I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed the whole season. I actually like thought it was better than season 2.
So what's your sentence then?
Gripping and entertaining.
Yeah, I think so. I fully enjoyed it.
I do think it left us with a lot of like interesting stuff to think about, more so than the previous seasons. Because there's been a lot more to unpack sort of like after the show, because a lot isn't resolved, which we're going to talk about. Actually, let's just get into it right now. Because that is a really important theme that gets queued up at the start of the episode. The monk says at the very beginning, he warns that there is no such thing as a resolution. And I went back and thought about this, and I was like, this is why everyone is arguing about this episode, because like for most of the characters, there wasn't a logical resolution.
Yes.
So we can like come back to this as we talk about each character. The other thing I wanted to cue up at the start was the title of the episode, which is Amor Fati, which means love of fate. And Chelsea talks about this.
A ton, yes.
So I Googled it to get some more context. It's a Latin phrase rooted in Stoic philosophy, which emphasizes accepting what you can't control and instead focusing on what you can, which is another theme that comes up a lot.
Very much explains Chelsea's entire just
arc.
vibe.
And Malka, who everyone heard at the beginning, also mentioned to me that there was reflection of like Buddhist philosophy. And this is where I think like, at least for me, like my recaps definitely lack that. I think there was a lot to unpack about Buddhist philosophy in the show. I just like don't know enough about Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist religion to like really catch those nods throughout the show. But she mentioned to me that non-attachment and the middle way are key elements of Buddhist teachings. Non-attachment emphasizes the importance of letting go of attachment to material possessions, relationships, thoughts, and emotions to cultivate inner peace and contentment. And this is another theme that like when I thought about it after, I was like, okay, every character like went through this experience.
This just immediately, I'm like, shouldn't that have been like the Buddhist 101 book that Piper read before even coming to Thailand?
I think she did. I think she just didn't absorb it in the way she should have, probably. And then finally, my last like little like opening point is just about the monkeys. I was glad that they were back in this episode, and I know everyone was hoping a monkey was going to be a murderer, but I think they just ended up being a motif and a representation of like everyone's like chattering anxiety throughout the week at the White Lotus.
I sent Erin a meme of a monkey looking very sly and like, what the heck? And it was like the monkeys wondering why they've been blamed all season. These poor monkeys.
These poor monkeys. They didn't deserve it. So I figured we would start by talking about the gal pals, because I think that they probably have the most controversial conclusion of the series. So I've been thinking about this a lot, so I have a lot to say.
I was so curious. Immediately as I saw the ending of the gal pals, I was like, I need to know what Erin thinks about this, because you last episode were like, if Mike White makes them leave in a fight and never being friends again, I do not want that portrayal of women at the end. But are you satisfied?
Okay, let me give my spiel, because
I really did think about together. This a lot. She's getting into this.
So I looked at a lot of the internet's response to this, because something I noticed right away, just in chatting with like friends, is that everyone's reaction to Laurie's monologue was extremely different. Like the reactions I've heard from people, like night and day. And I've noticed that there's sort of two main conclusions that people, or like two main vibes that people have about it. So I've seen commentary from people who relate to the dynamic of the gal pals, and they feel that the portrayal showed the complexity of women's friendships, and that Laurie's monologue was signaling the importance of accepting your friend's flaws and sticking out long-standing relationships. The opposite commentary I've seen are people who say they don't relate to the gal pals' friendship dynamics. Some people feel it represents toxic friendship versus complex friendship, and that Laurie's speech is really damaging because it sends the message that if you've known people a long time, you should excuse their toxic behavior. So those are the two like main camps. There's obviously like nuances in between them. I've seen people like who kind of fall in the middle. I think that's probably where I fall, like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, same.
What's your feeling?
I definitely feel like I fall in the middle, and this would be a complex conversation to have with my therapist if I found that I was in some situation like this. Like it's so dependent on who you are as a person, all of the context that goes into their friendships that we don't even have any idea of. I mean, these are fictional characters, so as far as we know, this is all their friendship is from what we've seen and they've talked about.
And they do
really
make
depends.
a comment that it's been like this forever. And that was sort of the comment for me that like cemented my more, I would say, like negative view of the outcome is that like if you have 20 to 30 years of experience with this friendship and this has always been the dynamic and you haven't been able to resolve it by the time you're in your 40s, I just don't know, like,
what
if
else
I
is
would
there to
have
expect?
the energy left to, like, fight for
Yeah.
that relationship. Whereas if it was, because obviously, like, friendships ebb and flow. Like, I've experienced this a lot in my life. Like, you go through phases where you feel more conflict with friends, and that is normal. But if that is the constant norm, like, I don't know.
I was definitely like feeling some type of way with like how that whole dynamic with like basically the rest of their story in this episode, like Lori waking up after an absolutely wild night of being alone. Like to me, that was like just I can't imagine like waking up and being like hungover and feeling awful and just like fully reflecting on the absolute shenanigans and wildness that you got up to the night before. It must feel like such a crazy, wild, out of body experience to wake up to that feeling and then sort of feel isolated from your friends at the same time. Like I was really feeling for Lori in that moment, and I still was like very much like gung-ho team Lori. And then Jack walks in and she's like, hey, like, you good? Are you coming to breakfast with us? Do you want us to bring anything? I thought that was very kind of her in the moment. And then I think like maybe this might have happened in like real life, somewhere else in their day, but I couldn't help but be like, by the time it was dinner time and Jacqueline and Kate talking about how like everything is in bloom right now and how happy they are that they managed to do this trip.
It was so tone deaf.
I was like, are you not acknowledging, like, is no one going to check in on Lori, who was just alone all last night? Kate couldn't get a hold of her. Nobody was going to ask her if she's okay. And so that left me like kind of disappointed when Lori breaks down and says like she's so happy they did this. And I was like, I guess maybe Lori needed her own solo adventure to like figure her shit out, and like I don't know what that was, but I was a bit disappointed in like that direction. I was hoping that the girls would at least check in with
I think that's
Lori.
a really good point. And I think like it tracks with like what we see of their relationship the whole season. But I did see one interesting interpretation on Threads, which was just like arguing that the monologue she gives is a lie. That Lori wakes up and realizes, I'm never going to be able to like get there with these friends. So to achieve peace with them, I just have to like say this and accept them for who they are. And like, just there's never going to be depth to these relationships. It's almost like she plays into the phoniness that like all of them have conveyed like the whole season. She's just like giving into it.
Well, there's almost like truth to it too. Like, this is what I was wondering. Is like maybe she's saying she's sad and like the sadness is real, but the reasoning she's giving for it is not. It's sort of like her acceptance of this is the way it's always been, and this is our dynamic is also her understanding that like maybe this is my breakup with them, and like I don't want to experience this feeling again.
Yeah.
And she they go home and they never talk, but then they all hang out and they're like being girls at the end of the night, and I'm like, okay, this feels genuine and like totally like the gals coming together. So I don't know, that left me in a weird place with them.
My one little like bit of optimism that I could get to with that monologue was that maybe her vulnerability in the moment is an invitation to Jacqueline and Kate to be more vulnerable. And in the moment they aren't, but maybe they will be in the future. We don't know because we don't actually see like the long-term resolution here.
Yeah.
Like that's all we get.
I like that interpretation.
Yeah. So there is something I want to talk about because I am just like so fascinated by all the different reactions to this, because I've just, especially on Threads, noticed that people are really like fighting about it, like debating. Like
on Threads, people fighting?
Debating. Debating is a better term.
I'm kidding.
No, but there are people that really feel strongly that like they related very much to what Laurie says in her monologue, and they related to the experience of this friendship. And so seeing all these different reactions had me thinking about this essay from 1983 called Television as a Cultural Forum. I'm going a little film schooly on you right now. But
I love when you bust out your film school.
I just thought about this a lot because it really works for this moment. The essay argues that television should not be seen only as a tool for enforcing dominant ideology, but it can actually be seen as a cultural forum where societal issues and values can be represented and explored and debated. And I wanted to mention this because I think that the debate I'm seeing around the Gal Pals is literally this cultural forum. What I like about the storyline of them is that it creates a space for women to share their different readings of the friendship dynamic and to unpack that. And I think that the range of readings that we're seeing shows that women aren't a monolith. There's so much diversity in our experiences and our opinions, and the way that we read the Gal Pals is based in our own like personal experiences, of which are very diverse. Thinking about it, because like, to be honest, I'm not sure that I loved the representation of women that this like portrayal was in the show, but I do think that the cultural forum that has resulted from this portrayal has led to really interesting and healthy debate, which hopefully like gets people to self-reflect. So I guess what I'm saying is I think that The White Lotus has given us like a very complex representation of women's friendship that is really worth examining and worth unpacking and like thinking about why we react to it the way we do.
I mean, snaps, no notes. Like, there's nothing else to be said. I love that. I mean, I think that's such a wonderful point. And you can't help but watch the girls and imagine yourself in one of their roles. Like, you can't help but try to figure out who it is that you relate to the most. And it makes you think about like what you would do in that situation, or situations you've already been in that are like that, and what kind of friendships you accept, what types of things that you wouldn't accept in a friendship. Because a lot of the things that those women go through are they could be friendship breakers. They could be full on like friendship enders. And it's a choice to move forward from those and it's a choice for a variety of different people. Like,
yeah.
Could change.
And I do think like, okay, the one caveat I'm going to share with this is that I think the outcome of the Gal Pals, I would have liked it more and it would have made more sense to me if the stereotypical characteristics of the woman were balanced with more moments of joy.
Yeah. Because
I feel like we really saw very few like moments of joy and of love and support between them. And seeing that like in balance with the like hostility between them would have made the friendship more complex and would have made me understand more why Laurie is like willing to fight for it.
Yeah, I think that was missing too.
I think that was missing, but like I also thought about it like because I really didn't like it at first, and now I've like come around to it more. And I think what it is I thought about it also in the context of like the other characters that we see on the show. And if you look at them like in the context of all the women on the show, we do get like a really diverse like representation of women on the show, like so many different types of women, many of them imperfect. And then like you said, within their relationship, while I don't relate personally to like being in that kind of toxic three-way friendship, I could relate to moments. Like there were moments where Laurie was like the third wheeler where I was like, I do relate to that. Like, so I didn't relate to the whole experience, but I related to moments.
Totally. Now, can we quickly talk about, just because I saw this online too, there was a replay going around of when Rick shoots Jim and all the women run down the boardwalk, and Lori books it out of there, like is like 5 meters ahead of the other. Like the girls haven't even noticed what's happened or processed. Lori's already down the boardwalk.
I love that.
Like, this is okay. So Mark and I had a funny little thing come up the other day because we were talking about the show, and Mark was like, yeah, so people are saying Carrie Coon's gonna be up for the Emmy. And I was like, really? Like, honestly, I think that it should be like the lady who played Lori. Like, I think Lori should be up for that. And then like literally a few hours later, I'm like, no, we're talking about the same person. I didn't realize Carrie Coon. I thought Carrie Coon was the actress that plays Jacqueline this whole time. I was getting her name mixed up. So yeah, I definitely think Carrie Coon up for the Emmy. Like she was so good in this show.
I'm just thinking about the other characters.
They were also, I thought they were all, Lori was the most really dynamic character.
She was. I agree with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I could see her winning it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else to say about the Gal Pals?
Let me just check my notes here. I think you pretty much got to it all, though.
I thought it would be the most interesting storyline, except for the Ratliffs, which we're going to talk about next.
Yeah. So who shall we talk about next?
Okay. So let me think about how to even start with the Ratliffs. Let's start with Piper's confession. Just because like Victoria's reaction to Piper's confession that she is actually spoiled was just so gold. Like Victoria knew what she was doing when she raised her daughter.
I told you Victoria knew what she was doing. Didn't I say this? I was like, Victoria knows.
And her reaction is so good because she's not like, I told you so. She's like validating her feelings. She's like, yes, you're privileged.
The commentary that's come out around this moment of Piper's has been really interesting too. That's like all over threads and social media. It's just so interesting watching someone who wants to like be a good person and realizes that they just aren't willing to make the sacrifices that they feel are necessary to do that. And like sort of sitting with their choice to like not do that. Like Piper she might come back and decide that this is an interesting challenge for her to try and take on so she can look at life in a new way. Who knows? But I feel like a lot of us, like especially right now with so much crazy stuff going on in the world, like I particularly have been feeling very strong in my like morals and values and feeling like quite like motivated to make like radical moves personally, but I haven't. And I've thought a lot about like, what am I willing to sacrifice? Like I have thought about this quite often. And I think that's something that like anybody who is feeling intense right now about the state of the world and wanting to see change is probably reckoning with. I mean, it's hard to like really compare it to like Piper's privilege of to choose
Piper
whether or
was
not.
mainly concerned about whether the food was organic.
I know. To reckon with the fact that you like love your privileged life so much that you just don't want to sacrifice it is something that I think a lot of white people in particular are going to have to like reckon with.
Yeah, definitely.
Crazy.
I just have to say it because I like was studying their monastery experience as it was happening. And like I've traveled in Asia, I've seen some of these, like they're usually called temple stays. Mm-hmm. And let me just for the record say the conditions of that temple stay were really good. Like
I was surprised she had her own bedroom.
Like, most exactly. And the food looked good to me.
Yeah. But it's just not organic. It's like the next level up. It's so crazy.
I think it was just funny to me that for her was like a shock.
Yeah.
So yeah, I originally felt like that scene was like showing that Piper had regressed. because she starts out so committed to exploring like how to live a less materialistic and more meaningful life. But then at the end, she's completely abandoned that and accepted her fate as like an extremely privileged kid. And I was talking about this with Malka and Shir, of course, and Malka mentioned that this could read not as regression, but you could read it also as growth, because instead of exploiting another culture to work through her feelings of rich guilt, Piper has now accepted that it is her fate to be this privileged kid. And hopefully it's something that she'll work through now in the parameters of her own home. Although I don't have faith that she will, like, given her mother's reaction, but maybe.
This is why I had her as a contender for my Conscientious Traveler Award this episode, because I was like, is it? I went back and forth, like I'm walking my dog around the block before we recorded.
We're going to do this at the end.
Thinking about
We're doing this at the end. The other thing I think is interesting to call out, because I noticed it right away, I think a lot of people did, is just like how her vibe changes, like everything from her clothes to the way she carries herself, like not a book in sight anymore.
Yeah, now she's got her crop tops instead of her like neckline shirts. Like,
like she goes from very conservative to very like kind of. I almost thought she becomes what Saxon like describes at the beginning of the show.
Pretty much. Well, her and Saxon basically swap spots, which I definitely wasn't expecting, because he leaves reading a book and she leaves just basically being Saxon the way he was coming in.
Yeah.
Now my question is like, what exactly caused the, if we can call it a regression or the growth, whatever it was, what caused the switch? Because it wasn't that obvious, other than possibly like Lachlan's genuine interest that he expresses to her. I think maybe she senses like the difference in his interest in staying there compared to hers, like how easy it maybe seems for him,
right?
And maybe can't help but compare it to herself. I don't know. But that was never obvious to me, that I felt like I was kind of like lacking. Like, why does she randomly just... Or maybe it's just the shock of the season.
Yeah, maybe. Although, maybe the temple stay was really shocking for... I don't know. I do agree, though. I did find it like a bit jarring.
For someone used to organic food all the time, it must have been quite a shock.
I guess so. But that room looks so nice. Like,
the one thing it was lacking, though, Erin, was the mosquito net. And that's why she couldn't stay. Yeah, there you go.
Well, let's talk about Saxon.
Yeah.
What is there to say about Saxon?
Not a lot for him this episode, other than like him sort of still exploring like this shift into, I think, just being a more like conscientious, more mindful person, a deeper person, somebody who thinks about things outside of just wealth. And honestly, I think maybe he's like got a sense from his dad that something's up, but he's like, well, I better sort of thinking about life a different way, or else I might be fucked. So
So I thought it was interesting because in the final scene, when they're back on the boat, he's reading Chelsea's book that she gave him. And I thought it was so interesting, like their last conversation, especially when he turns around and looks at her like hugging Rick, because you could see that he's like crying and upset. And it's like not because he's like in love with her. My sense was that he saw like modeled for him passionate love and connection, and he could feel the beginnings of that with her, with the few conversations that they'd had. And that was like his realization that, oh, there's more to life, like, and there's more to like relationships with women. And in that last conversation, she comments that they could be spiritually connected as part of a group. And I think you could argue that they were, because she arguably healed Saxon more than she did Rick.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes. I think you're right on the money there. I don't really have anything else to say about that other than like the other piece there is that he, after that hug happens, he turns to Chloe and is like, do you still want me to take you up on that situation? Or no, he's like, sorry, I couldn't be more help to you and Gary. And she says, it's all right, I can find someone else.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's just like a blow to his ego for sure, just watching Chelsea find her like beautiful connection that she feels with Rick, and then also this other girl saying, hey, you ain't shit. So yeah, definitely he has some inner reflection to be doing on his way home.
And what do we think about Lachlan, other than he's learned an important lesson, which is that you must always rinse the blender? I think this is a lesson that every 18-year-old must learn in life. Yeah.
I think the conversation around Lachlan here is mainly like his conversation with Timothy, right? Like after Timothy finds out he has some semblance that no one in his family is okay with being poor other than Lachlan, we get the bait and switch of like, oh, well, he's going to kill all his family except for Lachlan, and Lachlan's going to be able to walk away with nothing, just perfectly happy, apparently. That probably wouldn't be the case. Lachlan would be really fucked up. But yeah, and then obviously we get that switch. But yeah, the Lachlan death, I think we all saw it coming just because of all the numerous reading that we did into the opening credits too.
Yeah. I don't know. You don't get tons of insight into like who Lachlan is when he like comes back to life.
No.
In a way, it's almost like the three kids are all reborn in their own way. But I think like at least my belief, I guess, is that he's like learned through his experiences with both his siblings now that he needs to forge his own path and can't just like sit in the shadow of his sister or sit in the shadow of his brother and like just mirror them, which I actually think is like an interesting thing, because I think that happens a lot in families, especially in families with lots of kids. Because the one thing he says, which I think is kind of like an insight into this, is when he tells Saxon that he's a pleaser in a family full of narcissists. That's the first time we get out of Lachlan a really like introspective comment.
Yes. That note, I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot about it, because I wrote something down about this where I was like, honestly, I think like Lachlan's reasoning for jerking off Saxon because he's a pleaser and he's been raised in a family of narcissists, this is totally valid to me. And I feel like it goes back to my point where I was saying, like at the very beginning, he points this out. Saxon was like literally talking about jacking off all of the time. Like this is an 18-year-old boy. Like what else is getting normalized around him is just being weird and sexual around your family and wanting to please them all. I thought that was like a great moment, and I think it's also partially why like Saxon is so uncomfortable about all of this, because he knows that to be the truth too. He can't deny what Lachlan said to him.
Okay, and the irony of it too, I thought this was like kind of funny, is that Lachlan's near death is literally a result of the pressures, like the masculine pressures of Saxon. Yes. Because it's Saxon's like constant egging on about drinking protein shakes that leads Lachlan to make the drink.
And on that note, it's, you know how the pina coladas all tasted kind of funny with the seeds in there? Yeah. Only a protein smoothie would it not be questioned, because protein smoothies are disgusting.
Yeah, and as we established.
Like grainy and nasty, and only in a protein shake would it not be questioned why this tastes weird.
Yeah.
Because that is how they exist.
Also, this cues up one of my biggest takeaways of this episode, which was that more men need to learn to navigate their emotions in a healthy way, because there were a lot of devastating consequences for innocent people in this episode. because of men not unpacking their emotions in a healthy way. Like Lachlan's near-death experience could have been avoided. Chelsea's death could have been avoided. The Ratliff's murder-suicide could have been avoided. Like it was avoided, but like we got a little too close to it. Like
I don't know how it was avoided. I don't know how. How none of the family members who had an ounce of that pina colada didn't feel something weird. Like, I don't know.
Like a bit of sickness. I mean, listen, I'm actually seeing a lot of people who are kind of annoyed with the show because they're saying there's a lot that you need to suspend your belief for. And that's one of the things. And I don't know. I'm just kind of like, no television show is perfect. It's like more about the story than like tying up every little loose end. So
sometimes
that didn't
you just have to
me.
be okay with this is just what happens in the universe.
Yeah. So people are upset that we don't get to see the fallout of Timothee's news for the family. I think this actually like goes along with the themes of the episode, like we were saying, like the lack of resolution and the idea of fate.
Yes.
And I don't think that we need to see the fallout because literally every character, including Lachlan, told Timothée like directly how they would feel about being poor.
Yep.
Like Piper tells him like she would miss being a princess and Saxon would feel like a failure and Victoria wouldn't be able to survive. So like we don't really need to see the fallout. And I think I kind of like that there's ambiguity in it because like all of them have had some sort of growth arc. So we don't know exactly like if what they've told him has changed, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think
honestly,
they'll have different reactions than they've told us they'll have?
No, I think it's going to be exactly what they've said. I think Piper maybe is going to be in sort of the middle there, being like, no, actually, if you make me really do it, I can. But I think Saxon will actually be fine. I think he might get, maybe he might have to go to jail for a little bit just for being like implicated. But I think like he's probably already in process of a turnaround that we were hoping he would have in episode 1. So I think he's going to be just fine. I think honestly, like I'm a little bit worried for Lachlan because like he's been through some shit in the last week alone. Like he has been through some crazy stuff and his brain isn't fully developed yet. Like honestly, if this man, I wouldn't be surprised if Lachlan ends up going back to Thailand and becomes an LBH for the rest of his life. Like I just think he is fucked up at this point for forever.
I think that Victoria has family money and Timothée's going to go to jail and they'll all be fine because of Victoria's family money.
I think so too. I think Victoria has set herself up so that she never has to live.
They have some money offshore somewhere.
For sure. She's definitely saved up enough money to bail someone out just in case, plus a little extra to get by.
Yeah. But I thought it was really nice to see sort of how they wrap up Timothée's arc, like with him like looking at the ocean and just like accepting his fate like gracefully.
Yeah.
It was nice to see that.
I didn't think about it at all watching them leave, being like, I need to see what happens when they get home. Yeah. We only ever see really what happens at the White Lotus or Greg's house, which is basically the White Lotus because it's just basically on the resort. But I never thought that I needed to see that. I didn't even think about it. So I'm pleased with their ending. And that quote off the top, I had also written down, there's no resolution to life's questions. It is easier to be patient once we finally accept that there is no resolution, which to me, that was like the whole story for Timothy. Like, he has no idea what's going to happen next and he has to just be patient and find out.
I think my one criticism of the show might be that I think that this season didn't need to be 8 episodes because it was like 6.5 episodes of Timothée just like mumbling in like a lorazepam haze. And I think he could have had this arc in 6 episodes.
Totally.
It didn't need to be 8.
Yeah. The big quote that comes off the top too is there quick fixes create more anxiety. And this is exactly what happens to Timothy is he thinks his quick fix is pina coladas for the fam, except for Lachlan. And then that only creates more anxiety for him, right? As he's watching his family consume these things. And then obviously Lachlan like practically dies from this. Quick fixes, maybe not the best idea all the time. It's good to be patient and be okay with no resolve.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's the rat lifts. Anything outstanding to discuss?
Looking at my notes here. I just thought it was funny that Pam said have a wonderful last day to him right before he ate the
That
fruits.
was such a great scene. Pam was so funny.
So funny. And I actually just wrote down, during the episode, I was like, I'm assuming this is their last day on the resort just based off of like how the season is like. They're at the resort for a week, whatever. But like somehow before Pam even says like have a good last day, somehow they captured the vibe of your last day on a trip like very well. I don't know what it was, but things seemed to be like people were sort of like chipper, dressed up a little bit more again, like doing all their like activity. I don't know, the vibe of just like last day vibe was very apparent to me. I don't know how to articulate it, but
like everyone trying to make the most of their final hours.
Yeah. There was just something optimistic about it where you never really want to leave your trip, but the last day is always a bit of a vibe.
Yeah. All right. Well, shall we talk about Chelsea and Rick?
Yes, let's talk.
My favorite line from Rick was when we had that very brief period of believing that Rick had actually found his peace and was going to like ride off into the sunset with Chelsea.
Yeah.
When he says, I got the monkey off my back, I was just like, that's great. That's a great nod to this motif of the monkeys. I really appreciated that.
Okay, one thing couldn't escape Mark and I this entire time with Rick. Why the hell would he come back to the resort and stay another night?
This is another one of those things, right? Like in the show universe, it just like doesn't make sense. But yeah, because it was pretty predictable. Like Malka predicted that, yeah, like Shrutala and her husband were just going to come back.
Yeah.
And find him and like be upset with him for what he did.
I was like, and of course, as soon as he left and all that shit went down, like I don't think Shrutala and Jim are just hanging around waiting for the next, like, I think there's a sense of urgency to go back to the resort where they last saw this man.
Yeah.
And like make sure he's, like, I don't know. That part was, Mark and I just kept being like, why are you still there? Why are you still there?
Yeah.
Like he arrives that night and then he stays and we're like, why are you at breakfast, man? Like you should be out as soon as possible.
Yeah. Did
and
not
we
understand
know that Chelsea is going to follow you. You don't have to explain anything to Chelsea. Chelsea will just go with you. She just wants to be with you. So like,
yeah.
Oh, that was silly. That was silliness to me.
Honestly, Chelsea and Rick were just such a devastating storyline. I can't handle Rick's inability to work through his emotions in a healthy way.
It was weird because like when he returns, he seems genuinely like very happy to see Chelsea, and like you can't help but root for them because it's so beautifully shot. Their like reunion, you're like, oh, this is so nice, and I'm so happy for them. But like, you also can't root for them either because Rick's still doing his funny business.
Well, I was never happy for her because he still just like went off and partied all night without even calling her to tell her what happened. Like, I stand by this. Like from the beginning of the season, like Chelsea, like you deserve so much better than this.
I mean, if she wasn't dating him, she wouldn't be dead.
Yeah, literally.
So, and it occurred to me too, like the entire season, she's like, I have a bad feeling about this. Like, so I've got a bad feeling about this. May as well have been a Star Wars episode. Like, come on.
So I have questions.
Yes.
So something I noticed was when they die, they are placed, like they're in the water and they're positioned with Rick lying face up in the water and she's lying face down, like opposite direction. And I was thinking this kind of represents yin and yang, which she brings up all the time. And we see him facing up and he looks like at peace, like he's kind of smiling. And I guess because he knows the truth, like he's died knowing the truth of his life and his family.
Yep.
And And this was, I guess, like the closest thing to resolution that Rick would ever get. Like, it was his fate. But Chelsea kept saying that it was her fate to be with him forever.
Yeah.
So was this her fate, or was it a fate she didn't deserve?
I think it was her fate. I think she kept actively making decisions to be a part of this.
She made it her fate to die with Rick.
I think she had accepted that this was her fate, was to be with Rick forever.
She just deserved to be loved back in the way
know.
that she loved him.
I saw some commentary that said that the people who died, well, I mean, there was a number of people who died, but there was maybe some symbolism around like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Father being Jim, the Son being Rick, and the Holy Spirit being Chelsea. So maybe the three of them were always bound to be connected. Who knows? Fate's a weird thing, right? Especially when it's fictional. So
we did call it that Jim was going to be his dad.
Oh, we totally called it. That was super obvious. And this is where I also had to suspend my disbelief too, because I was like, why would Jim, instead of just being like, I knew your dad, he was a piece of shit, why wouldn't he just say, it was me? And then like, maybe he wouldn't have gotten shot. Like, why did he have to be mysterious like that?
Ooh. Why did he have to be mysterious
This
like
man
that?
already
really
threatened you
that.
in your home. He's at your resort now, hasn't left. His girlfriend is standing next to him eating a donut. Like, he is clearly like unhinged. And you got to taunt him more by telling him that his dad's a piece of shit when you know the whole time it's you?
Maybe this is just more like toxic masculinity.
I think so too.
Honestly.
I think Jim was always evil, as I predicted. I don't know if I said this, but it was always in my notes. Jim is evil. And I think he would have rather died just being like, because he said all the bad things about his mom too.
Yeah.
I think he was happy and was ready to die an asshole.
Yeah. That donut tree looked great.
It did look great.
I would go to the White Lotus for
There's
the
a
donut
shot
tree.
of Chelsea running down the boardwalk with a donut.
With the
in
donut.
hand.
I did relate to that.
And
I do
people
love
were
a donut.
saying the donut is a representation of her, bright green with a hole in it.
Oh.
So sad. R.I.P. Chelsea. R.I.P.
So I do think like this was the most predictable season we've had.
Totally.
Like a lot of these storylines, they were pretty predictable.
Yeah. I think we called it. We should listen back to our episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, I listened back, but I'll explain why at the end. But
Okay. So next, I think we talk about Belinda, Zion, and Pornchai.
Yes.
Something I thought was nicely full circle about Belinda's arc is that in episode 1, she has that smile exchange with a black family that's at the resort, and then by the end of the season, like, she is no longer resort staff, so she now has the wealth herself to like be the guest that she saw and like had that interaction with. So I thought that was cute. But yeah, overall, I think they probably had the happiest ending, like out of everyone, to be honest.
Now, did you see the reading that she is basically Tanya at the end of this season?
Oh, I said that right away.
Yeah. So
she
made all
literally
these
says
promises.
what Tanya said to... But here's what I think about that, because I thought it was like an interesting hearkening back to what Tanya did to her. But it's not the same. Like, you can't compare it because she knew Pornchai like in a romantic sense, yes, but they hadn't really fleshed out like a business plan or anything.
In fact,
that wasn't a real discussion.
She was like skeptical about it. She was like, I don't really know, like, kind of thing.
But I thought it was interesting because I do think that potentially this was just like a subtle commentary on the power imbalance that you could argue exists between an American resort worker and a Thai resort worker. So just like Belinda knew that Tanya, as a wealthy white woman, had the potential to change her life's trajectory. I think Pornchai knew that Belinda, because of her American citizenship and like the privilege that comes with that, also had the potential to like potentially change the trajectory of his life. So I think like there was a bit of a power dynamic there. And that's kind of like what I had wished we would see more of in this season.
Yeah.
I wanted to see more of that, and I wanted to see more of just the resort workers. Like, so much of the season was focused on the guests. I wish we'd seen more of the staff.
We needed more of Fabian. Fabian didn't get enough. Like, all we saw was him singing, and that's pretty much it.
He was a minor character.
Yeah. Especially since the staff was like such an integral part of the seasons prior. Like, the hotel managers were so good in the previous seasons.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
do you know who I am? Peppa Pig.
Yeah.
So an iconic moment from season 2. Like, so
this season did like really, it was quite a break from like the formula of season 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not really that much to say about like Belinda and Zion. I thought like I liked their storyline in this episode because I thought it brought like the most comedic relief. I thought Zion was like so funny. He totally was like an MBA kid, just like straight out of school. Like, it was just so funny.
I made a note that he was like fully speaking Greg's language. Like, he was just so
trying
to. Yeah. And then also Belinda like walking away and being like, you need to ask for $5 million instead. Oh, so funny.
Yeah.
So funny. That scene was so good. I also made a really funny note because like, honestly, like, her leaving Pornchai was like kind of devastating, but like Pornchai seemed really sad, and he was such a sweet, lovable character. And I don't know what it is, I can't remember what it was, but I just wrote in all caps, Pornchai is so sweet, honestly reminds me of Mark and Luch. Like, he was just giving me such good energy, and like I think our partners are so like sensitive and like lovely human beings, and like lovely examples of like great men out there who I find specifically like Mark and Luke they're the guys who would like guide an animal outside instead of killing it, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, this is so sad for me because I know he would be such a good match for Belinda, but Belinda just, I guess, needed her single life to figure out who she is and then walk away with $5 million.
Yeah. I would have made the same choice as Belinda, unfortunately.
I feel like I would have too, but...
Vacation love doesn't last. I mean, it did for me, but...
You're married to your vacation love.
I know.
What are you talking about? This is what I'm saying. Like, she could have had her cake and eaten it too.
I do get it, though, because I would be out of there. Like, I would have been on the mainland, like, the minute I saw that $5 million in my account.
Yeah.
They stuck around a lot longer than I would have.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think Pornchai is probably one of the best characters, and I hope that we see him in a future season.
Oh, I would love to see him in another season. I thought he was great. I loved his character. I thought he was wonderful, and he was just like nice to watch on screen. So I was very happy with him.
He was a nice counterbalance to Saxon for most of the season.
Yes. Also, I'll just add, like, in this moment, I was like, okay, now it all makes sense why in the first episode when the shooting happens and Zion jumps in the pool and he's like, please don't let it be my mom. That better not be my mom. Now it all makes sense why he would have thought it was his mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was like a 50% chance Greg was coming for her. So especially after all the shenanigans they got up to the night before in that conversation. So that was pretty funny.
All right. So last I thought we would talk about Mook and Guy talk.
Ugh.
Do you think that their ending was a happy one?
No. I'm so pissed with Guy talk. I'm so disappointed in him. So disappointed. Like, what? For why? This is the thing. Like, even in, like, all of this for a girl? Come on, man.
I know. He literally, like, he's not living his true self. He's not living his true life and being his true self because he broke his Buddhist values. He didn't want to be a guard. He did not want to be violent. But I guess that's the power of infatuation with a woman. I mean, I don't think that he was in love with her.
That's the thing. And also, I'm like, what is Mook getting out of all of this? Like, it just like respect for the man she's dating. Like, I'm confused. What do you want from this man who like now that he's a security guard, now that he's promoted, like, it seems, I don't know what the point of stringing this man along is. Like, you could have just dated one of the security guards instead.
I mean, I guess you could argue that like she did actually like guy talk, but wanted to have a secure future. So she was like, I can only be with this man if he can live up to like these standards that I have that will like impact my future, which like in the context of like an economy like Thailand's like is probably more of a concern for people.
Yep.
But I don't really like how she went about it. And
yeah,
in a perfect world, she would have just loved guy talk for being guy talk.
Yeah. So Guy Talk walks away or drives away as the brand new security guard. And like, let's unpack how he's got this promotion. First of all, the first 2 security guards died. That's one of the reasons why he got this.
Yeah.
The second reason, he conveniently shot the man who shot Jim. Grabbed the gun like a little too late, but still like did that, but basically like murdered a guy.
Yeah.
And like this is what Sritala is like, that's what makes a security guard that I need in my life. A man who just like, it not really merit-based whatsoever other than like, you killed the guy who killed my husband, so I know you can pull the trigger, but also the past 2 guys died, so we needed someone to fill the role. Like... I'm like, come on, man. This isn't really like how does he work this job now and feel like a sense of pride? You know? I would feel icky about it like my whole life. And I would feel icky about the girl that I'm dating who now likes me more and respects me more because I killed a guy and took 2 dead guys' jobs.
Well, I guess this is just Guy Talk's flaw. Like all these characters are flawed, and Guy Talk's flaw is that to him, that's worth it to have Mook. Yeah. This does bring me to one storyline that like I'm still not sure like was really necessary, which is the Russians. Like they did contribute to a lot of like the momentum of the story, but it was just like, what was the whole point of the robbery? Like it doesn't lead to anything. Like, and Laurie doesn't bring it up.
Laurie never brings it up. The Russians live happily ever after.
Apparently, yeah. I think this season should have been 6 episodes. Like the Mook and Guy Talk storyline did not need to be 8 episodes.
No.
There just wasn't like enough depth there.
It almost feels like they needed to write a storyline around somebody who's going to shoot Jim. Because the other characters, their storylines were already fleshed out.
Yeah.
Why not make it the monkeys then?
Should have been the monkeys.
Now, the only character you didn't bring up, if I can do so, Frank. Frank had the night of his life. Somersaults down the hallway in his tighty whities. He is, if not already, an LBH. He is like well on his way to becoming one.
Well, I don't know though, because we see him back at the temple. So
I think he's back in his old ways where he's like, I'm spiritual, I don't drink. And now he's partying and doing a bunch of drugs. And he's going to go over and over and over in this cycle until the very end. He's going to be like, listen, all I can do is be an old rich guy and I need a hot lady around me. That's it. That's all I got left in me, man. That's all I got left. So
I hope we see Frank again.
Oh, we have to. Sam Rockwell is so good. Like, bring him and Porn Chai back, please. And Zion.
Yeah.
I would love to see more Zion.
I think it's like pretty plausible that we see Belinda and Zion again now that they're rich.
What if Belinda and Zion open their own White Lotus franchise?
Maybe.
Because Zion could be the next general manager.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't need to, though, because now they're so rich.
I know.
He could just not work.
They can do whatever the heck they want. They can do whatever they want. So I saw this interesting thing because you kept talking about like how everybody's like changed and flawed. There was some commentary that came up that I didn't fact check this, but somebody was saying that Mike White was saying that the theme around this whole season was moral disengagement and how each of the characters just abandons their morals by the end. And that's kind of like the theme that we'll see across the board, is that like anybody who came in with strong morals or strong like opinions on something, it was going to have all changed by the end. And that's pretty much what we saw across the board, other than the people who that didn't happen to died. If their morals didn't change, they died.
And
So,
Belinda, I was thinking about this because I did see some people saying that Belinda, the second she has this money, it's like suddenly all her morals are out the window. She just like discards porn chai and like sails off into the sunset. And I was just like, I don't know. I think like she can still hold on to her morals to a degree. Like she didn't seem that changed to me.
Yeah.
But
And like she had also the pressure from her son. She wants to sort of look out for her and her son. It's more complex than that.
The money will change her, but I don't know if we can see it yet. It's too soon.
Yeah.
She hasn't been able to physically spend any of that money yet.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I feel like that's all the characters, right? I just have like one funny like thing to point out. And then we need to talk about our award winners. What else is on your agenda here, Erin?
The only last thing I wanted to ask, because people are upset about this, is that there's no fallout from the shooting. Like the only characters we see who seem at all distressed by presumably the shooting are the gal pals on the boat.
Yeah.
They look like kind of distressed, but like no one
not
else.
Quite. This was like what I was going to bring up, which was like, can we talk about the fact that all these Americans get back on their boat and no one seems to be that like that?
They're not fazed
shocked by
it.
a mass shooting that just happened.
Yeah.
Like it has to be a commentary on this, right? It has to. It's so
maybe
subtle
on their
and not
moral
intentional.
disengagement.
Like, or just on like just how normal mass shootings are for Americans. Like they all get on the boat and it's sort of like, all right, what's next with our lives, right? Like there's no, I think for like a lot of people from other countries around the world, if that had just happened, there would be a lot of like intense feelings around this. I feel like the mass shooting that just happened where like 5 people died, like that's intense. Like that's not something they just get on the boat and go back home about. Like
I
don't know. We don't
Yeah.
really see too much of that shock factor with these characters.
Because that was another difference in this season compared to the other two. The deaths in the other 2 seasons don't happen like in public, like on the resort. Like in season 1, it's on the resort, but in an enclosed space. No like guests see it. And then Tanya's death is like out on the boat. So this was the first time that it happens like in the space of the resort, really like in public.
Yep. And like everyone's like kind of like, all right, time to go back to America now.
It's probably just another like just has to be that way for the story, the universe. Yeah. So, okay, awards. Actually, before we get into awards, who was your favorite character overall?
I think Chelsea was my favorite character. I just love Amy Lou Wood as an actress. She's so incredible in Sex Education and everything she's in. She's so charming and wonderful. And I thought you couldn't not love her character, even though she was so flawed and you wanted best for her this whole season. You just couldn't help but root for her, at least in my perspective. What about you?
I think I'm aligned, Chelsea. Yeah.
That and Frank. Like, you can't go wrong with Sam Rockwell just being a nut. And that monologue was like iconic. It's got to go down in history for sure.
Yeah. And least favorite character?
Rick.
Same.
I just wanted to shake him by the shoulders and be like, just come on, man. Come on. Just move on. Move
just
on.
live your life.
Live your freaking life. Can also really quickly, at the end, Rick runs into his stress therapist and is like, please, it's an emergency. I need to talk to you. I feel like that's probably the one and only time that's happened to that woman in these resorts working here. Like, I can't imagine anyone ever going up to.
But it's so interesting, right? Because that is her name, Amrita.
Yeah,
I think it was. Amrita isn't even a therapist.
No.
So it just goes to show how little work Rick has done in his life, that this one forced upon him session, he had 2 sessions with her?
Yeah.
That those 2 sessions made so much progress. It's like, Rick, if you had gone to therapy 20 years ago, you and Chelsea would be like riding off into the sunset right now. Your whole life trajectory would have been different.
And not that I want Chelsea to have taken on this role for him, but like she was open and willing to have these conversations with him too. And like
she shouldn't have to heal him from that kind of pain. This is what I'm saying.
I don't want her, but like she was there at least like for him to be vulnerable. And like I think you can be vulnerable around your partner for sure. You don't need to unpack your trauma with your partner all the time, but like he had more than enough opportunities to like figure his shit out before like relying on some like poor staff worker who just wants to meditate with you. Like,
it was quite a tease to see him on the brink of like
he was
healing.
So close.
He was so close.
So close.
There's one person we forgot to talk about, someone's outcome. Chloe, I'm just going to say it. I don't really care about Chloe's outcome. Let's talk about Grary though.
Grary.
Do we think that Grary is going to make another appearance in the future?
I think he's done.
He's done. He's living out the rest of his life.
I think
pursuing his sexual fantasies in his mansion. Yeah,
like as we see at the end, Chloe fully finds someone else within a matter of like milliseconds. I would argue a much hotter person than Saxon is. And I think they're going to live their sexual fantasies until Grary dies. And I think they're going to be happy in Thailand forever, especially now that Grary knows he never has to worry about Belinda ever again.
Yep.
It's all as he said in the episode, like all he wants to do is just like live a nice life in Thailand.
Yeah.
On the White Lotus Resort.
Yeah. Most annoying character.
Ooh, good question. Honestly, Fabian.
Yeah.
Like, for why? Like, I was never given a reason to care about his music career.
I think it was just meant to be like just this cute little like side arc.
Totally. It was just comic
relief. He dies,
relief.
Right? I didn't actually confirm if he dies.
Does he
Fabian
die?
dies. Does he not?
No, I don't think he died.
Oh. I thought he got shot.
I don't think so.
I actually don't know. Because I was just going to say, well, at least he died happy because he got to sing.
Maybe he did die. You know what?
Hold on, let's Google it. Does Fabian die?
I don't think he died.
This is how little I cared about his outcome. Does Fabian
know.
die? Oh, he is alive.
Yeah.
So his singing career will continue, hopefully.
He will continue. Yep, exactly. Yep.
Okay, so now it's award time. Ooh,
all right.
Okay, who gets your most conscientious award?
Okay, I had to really think about it. We talked about Piper, but I couldn't give it to Piper because even though she's conscientious of her own ego and her own self, I think this is something she still needs to work on. Instead, I am giving my Conscientious Traveler award to Lachlan Ratliff.
Oh.
Who knew seemingly that Thailand water is a very precious resource and therefore would not need to rinse out the blender before making a smoothie of his own and waste water. So I'm giving my award to Lachlan.
Well, not to poke holes in this theory, but he did vomit into the pool.
Aww.
And now they're going to have to change out all that water.
That's true.
I do like where your head's at with this, though.
Damn it, Lachlan. You were so close. You just should have just If only he vomited just a couple inches over to the next side.
I know, right?
But he was close. He was close.
Yeah, I have to say this is pretty impossible to do, to hand out. So unfortunately, I decided to give my Conscientious award to Piper. And the only reason is that she was definitely the most interested in going off resort. So regardless of like her final conclusion, she did put the most effort in compared to everyone else. And I do appreciate that she called Timothée out on the phone usage. So
yes,
that's why she gets my award. And she skipped the full moon party.
Yes, she did skip the full moon party. You go, girl.
All right.
Okay,
Miss
on that
Cringe.
note, so we need to talk about who is our most conscientious traveler of the season.
Oh, that's what I said. My award that I gave to Piper, that's my most conscientious of the season.
Oh, the whole season? No. That's not how we're doing this, Erin. Because I went through every single episode.
To tally
and
up.
tallied up who we have given our awards to.
Okay.
So who do you think is our most conscientious traveler of the season?
Based on the tally.
Based on all of the awards we've given out.
I think it's Piper.
You're right. It is Piper. Piper is in number 1. Yeah. Piper wins our most conscientious traveler of the entire season. We awarded her most conscientious traveler in episode 1, episode 2. We both gave it to her in episode 4, and Erin gave it to her in episode 8 just right now. So there you go. I want you to guess, though, who tied. There was a 3-way tie for second.
Oh, there was. Interesting. Chelsea.
No, it was. Our 3-way tie for second included.
Oh, Belinda?
Nope.
3-way tie for second.
It included Saxon, Rick, and Timothy.
Rick got a conscientious award at some point?
We gave him 2. You and I both gave it to him in episode 6. I can't remember why.
Oh, I think because he was mad at the backpackers in the airport.
Oh,
maybe.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm shocked.
Oh, no, sorry. You and I both gave Timothy the most conscientious traveler in episode 6. I gave it to in episode 2 and episode 3. So I gave him both of the awards.
Okay.
Okay.
Who is your most cringe of this episode?
My most cringe of this episode, I wrote Timothy and the pina coladas. I can't remember why though. But I think I was just like, Timothy, I can't, like, you're going too hard in the paint with the fruits here. And also like leaving the blender out. Like why, if you cared about your family, like why would you leave the blender out?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that was my most cringe traveler award, I think.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I would say that, but I'm trying to think of it in the travel context.
I know. I can't remember why I wrote that now.
So for travel, I'm going to give it to Grary because he is staying behind in Thailand, living in his little bubble of like not knowing the neighborhood monk and never leaving the White Lotus or his mansion. So that's why I'm giving him the most cringe.
Okay.
Although arguably he's not a traveler since he's living there. I don't know.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to give my most cringe travel moment maybe to Piper. Because the organic comment, it really sent me over the edge. Yeah. It's one thing to like go to another country and not like love their food, but to complain that it's not organic. And she said, I don't even think it's organic. She doesn't even know for sure.
It probably is.
Probably
is. It was probably grown
in
on the monastery
backyard.
grounds.
Yeah, like it was probably grown right there. That I think wins my most cringe traveler moment.
Yeah, I think that's That's better. That's better than Grary.
No, you already gave it to Grary. It's too late. I already put it in the sheet.
Okay, so who won most cringe for the season?
Okay,
based on tally.
We have a tie for most cringe traveler of the season between Victoria and Chelsea. Now, in episode 6, you actually gave Victoria the most cringe travel moment 3 times. You mentioned 3 different instances, but I think I'm counting this as an overall episodic thing. The other interesting thing here, though, is that in episode 7, our very last episode that we just did, you gave Gary the most cringe travel moment. And you were very adamant about this because he lives in Thailand and does not exist in Thailand at the same time. And you even basically said you would give him the most cringe traveler moment of the entire season at that point. And then you also just awarded it to him now. So it's hard to say if just like based off of your enthusiasm around that, if Grary comes in first.
For me, it's definitely a tie between Grary and Victoria because you cannot you cannot erase the fact that she thought she was in Taiwan.
Yeah.
She didn't even know what country she was in. So
I think Victoria is like, when you think of a cringe traveler, this is who you think of.
Yeah.
So to me, I think she wins most cringe traveler of the season for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
So congratulations to Victoria and her daughter Piper for both being very conscientious and cringeworthy travelers this season of White Lotus. They made us feel all sorts of those feelings. So I think those are well deserved.
Agreed.
All right. Well, that's all I've got.
Yep. Well, final thoughts. Season 3.
Okay, Erin. Final thoughts. Season 4. But what's your dream location? Because you were really excited for Thailand.
I was excited for Thailand, and I do think that I was let down a little bit.
Yeah,
I just
actually,
expected to see more. I just wanted to see more commentary on the power dynamics, the dynamics of the staff and the guests. I just thought there was going to be more of that. And like he did really lean into the spiritual aspect. And I do think like leaning into that idea of like white Westerners coming and like co-opting like Eastern spirituality, that was like played with a little bit with Piper's character. I just feel like there could have been more. There could have been more done there. Yeah. In terms of the next season, I feel like doing a season on like a safari White Lotus could be really good, like somewhere in East Africa, or Mexico.
Ooh, yeah, that will be a good one. I'm on a similar vein to you as East Africa. I'm thinking, okay, hear me out. The White Lotus has expanded into a series of adventure cruises. And they're small expedition cruises that take on only about 20 people. But they're VIP, very bougie. However, they are going through Antarctica in the most vicious waters they could possibly travel through. All of these like rich white people who think that they're on some adventure of a lifetime to find themselves and take part in last chance tourism. But obviously shit goes awry as they venture into the crazy seas of Antarctica.
Oh my gosh.
And instead of a general manager, we have like the captain of the ship.
This sounds like the movie Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah. Basically, let's just watch Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah. If you're listening and you have not watched Triangle of Sadness, this is me begging you to watch that movie, actually.
She begged me to, and it was 1,000% worth it. It
is a work of art. It is, and it actually, now that I think about it, this is probably why I like it so much. It is a very similar like theme of that it replays a lot of the themes you see in White Lotus about just like wealth and tourism and power dynamics.
Power dynamics for sure.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Go watch it.
Yeah.
And thanks for spending all of this time with us as we did this recap, our first recap ever. I had a lot of fun doing this, Erin. Even waking up at 7 a.m. to do these with you over the last 8 weeks has been really fun and just like a fun, fresh thing for us to talk about. So
yeah, it was really fun.
I hope everyone enjoyed listening.
I hope so too. Because I'm not going to lie, this was a lot of work.
It
doing
was
all this.
I think we underestimated this show.
Recapping is hard. I have a new appreciation for recap podcasters because the preparation.
You know what I think I would potentially pitch for us to recap next that I think might be a little easier for us? I think we would recap the season of Jersey Shore where they go to Italy.
I did not know this exists. Did it happen already?
Yeah, it happened like 10 years ago.
Oh.
They all go to Italy, and of course, like they have their little jobs there at a gelato shop. They go to all the Italian, they do all this tourism stuff. I think that would be really fun.
That's so funny. Have you watched it? Is it really cringe?
I was watching it live when it was coming out.
I only watched like a few like random episodes of
Oh my God.
Jersey Shore, so I don't really know much about this world.
TV production at that time was so chaotic and so insane, and they put like filters on all sorts of random stuff. Like it was MTV, like it was an era. It was an era, but yeah. So if you get around to that would be fun.
That or Amazing Race. We've always talked about recapping Amazing Race.
Or
I
just
feel like that's a lot of
Amazing
episodes, though.
It is a lot of episodes, but it's a lot of people doing the same thing. So we could take it challenge by challenge rather than
That's true.
Chaotic storyline by chaotic storyline. Moral dilemma by moral dilemma.
We should apply for the Amazing Race. How do we do that?
We just wait for casting calls. I think they could probably select us too because they'd be like, podcasters, Katie and Erin.
Yeah, it would
Katie
be new,
Erin,
I think.
team number 2.
Have they ever had any podcasters?
Well, they had Shayla Ouellette Stonechild on their Amazing Race Canada, and she is the host of Matriarch Movement. She was on with her brother, though, so it wasn't like a pair of podcasters. But they've definitely had them at this point.
I think we could do it. I think we
could make it far too.
The thing is, would you be able to do the food challenges? Because this is my one blocker. Like, I can't eat a tarantula. I just cannot.
I think if it's crispy, I could.
What if it's not crispy?
They're not going to give you a live tarantula.
You don't think so?
No, that's unethical.
Well, not live, but like not fried. Like maybe it would be like cooked,
dried out.
But like, yeah.
If it was like jerky, I could do it.
Okay.
I'm not too bad with the food stuff, but you and I would be the girls sitting there being like, is there nuts in this?
I know. This is like, so I've applied for it before, and I'm convinced the reason it's like I never got anywhere is because of allergies. So I think we just like have to not disclose our allergies.
Until we're there being like, actually, well, I would take like a 2-hour penalty to not eat nuts. If we didn't disclose it.
I guess we just take the penalty every time.
Yeah. We would just have to train pretty hard to do the running capabilities. Make sure we have our north, south, east, west directions pretty good. Otherwise, I think we'd do great.
I'm pretty good at directions.
How are you with memory challenges?
Oh, not good.
I think I could do a memory challenge.
I think where I would shine is navigation. Mm-hmm. And probably like endurance challenges. I can probably do that.
I think I would shine in like, maybe I'm being a little bit too, maybe I have too much confidence in myself here, but I feel like I would shine in like some of the more like courageous sort of challenges, like jumping off of high stuff.
I think you would. You'd outshine me in that for sure.
Carrying heavy things. Like, I think I could do some of the challenges type stuff. Performance-y type things.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to be like the logistics person, and I can handle like the stressful situations, but it's going to be really hard to get me to like eat something like an animal or to jump off like a really high tower, like stuff like that. I don't want to do.
I don't know if I could eat an eyeball. I think an eyeball would definitely slow me down, but I think I could pop it in and swallow.
I think you could too. I do.
I think we should just use this as our audition tape. All right, so see you at the starting mat, Erin?
Yeah. If you love hearing interesting travel stories, you've got to listen to Travel Tales with Mike Siegel. Hosted by Mike, a stand-up comedian and TV host on TBS and HGTV, it's full of funny, inspiring tales from around the globe. You can find it on the Voyescape network at voyescape.com.